This story is titled, Mother-in-Law Secretly Tried to Sabotage My Pregnancy to Protect Her Daughter's Wedding. Now she's convicted and begging me for forgiveness. Hey everyone! Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Hey guys! I don't even know where to begin with this mess, so I'm just going to start from the top. It feels surreal even typing this out because the level of drama here is something I never thought I'd experience. I feel like my family's been flipped on its head, and I need to get this all off my chest. So, I'll give you some background first. I'm 29 female, married to Adam, 31 male. We've been together for 6 years, and married for 3. A few months ago, we announced that we're expecting our first baby, a little boy. You'd think everyone in the family would be thrilled, right? Well, not so much. Adam's mom, Megan, has always been difficult. I've tried to give her the benefit of the doubt over the years, but this time she went way too far. Megan has always been obsessed with Adam's younger sister, Rachel. Rachel is her golden child, and no one can do any wrong in Megan's eyes except me, apparently. Rachel is 27 and recently got engaged to her longtime boyfriend. The wedding is planned for the end of the year, and Megan is treating it like the Oscars, the Super Bowl, and Christmas all rolled into one. She's been micromanaging every little detail, which fine, that's her thing. But when Adam and I announced my pregnancy, things started getting weird. When we told Megan we were expecting, she didn't react the way I thought she would. I mean, she said the right words. Congratulations! That's wonderful news. But it felt forced. She seemed more concerned about the timeline than the baby itself. Rachel's engagement had just been announced, and Megan made a comment like, well, I hope this doesn't cause too much overlap. I just ignored it, thinking maybe she was just stressed. I never imagined where this was going. As the months went on, Megan started being heavy on throwing comments. She kept bringing up how close my due date was to the wedding date, saying things like, I hope people don't get distracted, or, it's such a shame about the timing. She even suggested that I avoid sharing too many baby updates with the extended family, so we can keep the focus on Rachel. I laughed it off at first, but it started to bother me. Why was my pregnancy such a problem for her? Adam told me to just ignore her, and I tried, but then things escalated. One night, Megan called me out of nowhere and asked how I was feeling. I told her I was doing fine, just the usual pregnancy stuff, and she said, well, I hope you're taking this time to think about what's best for everyone. I asked what she meant, and she said, you know, there's still time to make other arrangements. Rachel's wedding is such a big deal, and this could be a lot for the family to handle all at once. At first, I didn't get what she was saying. Other arrangements? Then it hit me. Turns out she was talking about ending the pregnancy. I couldn't believe it. I told her there was no way I was considering that, and that her suggestion was offensive and disgusting. She tried to backtrack, saying she was only thinking about the family dynamic and how this might affect Rachel. I told her it wasn't her business and hung up. I was shaking with anger. Who says that to a pregnant woman? Adam got furious when I told him. He confronted Megan about it, but she denied everything. She said I must have misunderstood her and accused me of being hormonal. Adam knows me better than that, though, and we decided to keep our distance from her for a while. For a couple of months, things were quiet. I thought she'd finally dropped it and moved on. But the strangest moment came one evening when a package arrived in the mail. It was addressed to me, and at first I thought it was just a routine delivery. Maybe baby supplies or something Adam had ordered. But when I opened it, I found a stack of bills. These weren't your average medical bills either. They were duplicates of charges we'd already flagged as suspicious, but with slight modifications, like different dates and amounts. Confused, I showed the bills to Adam. He immediately noticed something off. These don't even match our records, he said. That's when it clicked for both of us. Megan must have sent them. She was trying to pass off these bills, probably hoping I'd pay them without noticing. I couldn't believe the audacity. And you know what? I almost did pay them. One of the bills was so similar to a legitimate charge that I had it queued up for payment before Adam caught it. If we hadn't been extra cautious, Megan's little scheme would have cost us a fortune. It was both infuriating and terrifying to realize how far she was willing to go. After everything that had happened with Megan's bizarre comments and that awful phone call, Adam and I tried to put some distance between us and her. I focused on my pregnancy and preparing for the baby, while Adam supported me every step of the way. For a while, things were quiet. Too quiet, in hindsight. When I reached my third trimester, we started noticing something odd with our medical bills. At first, it was just a few charges here and there that didn't seem familiar. Adam spotted them when we were going over our finances one evening. He asked me, "Did you schedule something at a clinic recently?" I hadn't, so I figured it must have been a mistake. I mean, insurance billing errors happen all the time, right? But the charges kept appearing. Small ones at first, like consultation fees, but then larger ones for procedures we'd never even discussed with my doctor. We decided to call the clinic listed on the bill to get to the bottom of it. The receptionist was polite and helpful. I explained the situation, expecting her to confirm it was some kind of administrative error. Instead, she said something that stopped me cold. "We have notes from a patient named Megan on your account. She's the one who scheduled these appointments." My heart dropped. Megan? As in Adam's mother? Megan? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Why would she be scheduling anything under my name? I asked the receptionist to clarify, and she confirmed that Megan had been posing as me, calling the clinic, and booking appointments. Worse, she had provided documents that authorized her to make decisions about my pregnancy. I didn't know whether to scream or cry. I asked for a copy of everything they had on file, and the receptionist said she'd have their legal team get in touch to provide the necessary documents. She sounded sympathetic, but there was a tension in her voice, like she knew how serious this was. When I hung up the phone, I just sat there, frozen. Adam came into the room, saw the look on my face, and immediately knew something was wrong. I told him everything. He went from confused to angry in the span of a few seconds. "She did what?" he said. "She's been pretending to be you? Why? What is wrong with her?" I didn't have an answer. All I knew was that Megan had crossed so many lines, impersonating me, forging documents, tampering with our finances, and attempting to sabotage my pregnancy, all for the sake of Rachel's wedding. It was mind-boggling to think she had orchestrated this level of deceit. I guess what I'm trying to figure out right now is whether I should confront her and stop her from the nonsense she's doing, or just ignore her bullshit and keep the peace. I just can't wrap my mind around how far she can go with this craziness. Do you think that's normal? I'll be reading your comments and keep you updated. Update 1 point. Hey guys, I'm back with an update. I didn't expect the situation to get worse, but wow, Megan really outdid herself. What started as frustration and betrayal has turned into something far bigger than I ever imagined. Adam and I agreed that this wasn't just family drama anymore. This was legal. And honestly, I couldn't stay silent. We decided to wait for the clinic to send over the documentation before confronting Megan. In the meantime, we went through every single medical bill and flagged anything suspicious. The more we looked, the worse it got. Megan had been at this for weeks, maybe even months. She'd been paying for these appointments out of her own pocket, which made it clear this wasn't just a spur-of-the-moment thing. This was planned. The clinic's legal team got back to us a few days later with everything we needed. They sent over call logs, appointment records, and copies of the fake documents Megan had provided. Seeing it all laid out was both infuriating and heartbreaking. She'd gone to great lengths to sabotage my pregnancy, all because she thought my baby would distract from Rachel's wedding. The documents were especially damning. Megan had forged my signature on a fake authorization form, claiming I'd given her permission to make medical decisions on my behalf. She'd even fabricated a story about me being too emotionally overwhelmed to handle the pregnancy. It was disgusting. Adam and I decided we couldn't wait any longer. We needed to confront her. We knew the confrontation with Megan wouldn't be pretty, but neither of us could have prepared for just how unhinged things would get. Adam and I went into it with a folder full of evidence, call logs, forged documents, and billing records from the clinic. This wasn't just a family argument, it was about accountability. Megan needed to understand how serious this was, and honestly, we were ready to cut ties if she didn't. The day after we got the clinic's documents, we drove to Megan's house. Adam was quiet the entire way there, gripping the steering wheel so hard his knuckles were white. I could feel the tension radiating off him. He'd always tried to defend his mom, even when she overstepped. But this time, there was no defending her. She'd crossed a line no one should ever cross, and Adam was livid. I also think that Adam had enough with Rachel being the golden child in his family, and this time, they're crossing the line trying to prevent him from having a son, all for Rachel's sake. Honestly, I'm glad that he could see the truth without me trying to convince him. When we arrived, Megan greeted us with her usual forced smile. She looked surprised to see us, especially when she noticed the folder in Adam's hands. "What's this about?" she asked. "We need to talk," Adam said, stepping past her into the house. I followed him, and Megan closed the door behind us. We walked into her kitchen, and Adam laid the folder on the table. He didn't waste any time. "Mom, what is this?" he demanded, flipping the folder open to reveal the forged authorization form. Why did you forge my wife's signature? Why have you been pretending to be her and scheduling appointments at a clinic? Megan's face went pale, and for a moment, I don't know what you're talking about, she said, avoiding eye contact. Those bills were just an accident. I didn't mean for anyone to pay them. Don't lie to me, Adam yelled. We have all the evidence. The clinic gave us the call logs, the documents, everything. You did this, Mom. Now tell me why. Megan's expression hardened. Fine, she said. I did it, but I was only trying to help. My jaw dropped. Help? That was her excuse? Adam was just as stunned. Help, he repeated. You tried to terminate our pregnancy without our knowledge or consent. How is that help? Megan crossed her arms and glared at us. This baby is bad timing, she said bluntly. Rachel's wedding is coming up, and a new baby is going to steal all the attention. I was thinking about the family, Adam, about Rachel. This is her moment, and I didn't want anything to take that away from her. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You think my baby is a distraction? I asked. I was shaking with anger. You think you have the right to decide what happens to my child because of a fucking wedding? Megan was unbothered. It's not about you, she said. It's about Rachel. She's been dreaming of this day her whole life, and I wasn't going to let it be overshadowed by your selfishness. Stop it, Adam exploded. Are you hearing yourself? You forged my wife's signature, scheduled unauthorized appointments at a clinic, and even tried to trick us into paying fake medical bills. Why would you do this? Megan's expression didn't waver. Nothing happened, she said dismissively. The clinic didn't go through with anything, so I don't see what the big deal is. The big deal, I said, is that you violated my trust, my privacy, and my autonomy. You thought you could control my life and my body for Rachel's sake? Do you even hear how messed up that is? You're overreacting, she said, rolling her eyes. I was just trying to do what was best for everyone. Adam slammed his hand on the table, making Megan jump. What's best for everyone? He shouted. What about what's best for me and my wife? What about our baby? Did you even think about that? Or was it all about Rachel as usual? At the mention of Rachel, Megan's expression softened. Rachel didn't ask me to do this, she said quickly. This was my decision. Oh, I'm sure she didn't, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. But I'm also sure she's perfectly fine with what you did. She's been spoiled by you her whole life, and now you're ruining my life to protect her wedding. It's disgusting. Megan's face turned red, and for a moment I thought she was going to yell, but instead, she sat down and buried her face in her hands. You don't understand, she said quietly. I was just trying to make things easier for Rachel. She's been through so much, and this wedding means everything to her. Adam shook his head. You've always prioritized Rachel over everyone else, he said. But this is too far. We're done, Mom. You've crossed a line, and there's no coming back from it. Megan looked up at him, her eyes filled with tears. Adam, please, she said. Don't do this. I'm your mother. I was just trying to do what I thought was right. What you thought was right, Adam said bitterly. What you did was wrong. It was cruel, selfish, and illegal. We're going to take legal action, Mom. You need to understand that. Megan's eyes widened. She got terrified. Legal action? You wouldn't. We would, I said firmly. This isn't just family drama, Megan. You broke the law, and there are consequences for that. Megan tried to argue, to beg, to guilt us into changing our minds, but we didn't budge. Adam told her we were leaving and that she shouldn't contact us until she was ready to take responsibility for her actions. As we walked out the door, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Megan had betrayed us in a way I never thought possible, and there was no coming back from that. That night, Adam and I started looking for a lawyer. We knew this wasn't over, and that Megan wouldn't go down without a fight. But we were determined to protect our family and hold her accountable for what she'd done. Do you guys think we're taking things too far? I honestly feel that I'm only protecting myself from her harm. She's the one who started everything. Let me know what you guys think, and once we arrange everything, I'll post an update here. Thank you for reading. Update 2: Alright guys, I'm back with a new update. So, after the confrontation with Megan, Adam and I knew we couldn't just let things slide. What she'd done wasn't just a family issue, it was a crime. She'd impersonated me, forged documents, and tried to interfere in the most personal aspect of our lives. If we didn't take action, it felt like we'd be condoning her behavior, and that was something neither of us could stomach. The very next day, Adam and I reached out to a lawyer. We found someone who specialized in family and medical fraud cases and scheduled a consultation. Just explaining the situation to the lawyer was exhausting. Every time I told the story, it felt more surreal and ridiculous at the same time. The lawyer, however, didn't seem surprised. Apparently, cases of overbearing relatives crossing legal boundaries aren't as rare as I thought. That was both reassuring and depressing. Our lawyer was blunt. What Megan had done was serious. She had violated multiple laws, including identity theft, forgery, and attempted medical fraud. There was no question that we had a strong case against her. The lawyer advised us to file both a criminal complaint and a civil lawsuit. The criminal complaint would address the identity theft and forgery, while the civil lawsuit would allow us to seek damages for the emotional distress and financial burden she'd caused. Adam was fully on board, but I'll admit, I hesitated. Part of me felt guilty for taking such a drastic step against his mother. As much as I despised what she'd done, this was still someone who had been a part of my life for years. But then I thought about my son. If Megan was willing to go this far over a wedding, what else might she do in the future? This wasn't just about holding her accountable. It was about protecting my family. That thought solidified my decision. So yeah, we filed a criminal complaint. Our lawyer walked us through the process, and within a week, Megan was formally served. I don't know what I expected her reaction to be, but I wasn't prepared for what came next. Megan started calling and texting Adam nonstop. She was furious. At first, it was all denial. She claimed we were blowing things out of proportion and accused us of trying to ruin her life over a misunderstanding. When that didn't work, she shifted to guilt trips. She reminded Adam of all the things she'd done for him growing up, as if that somehow justified her behavior. When neither approach worked, she resorted to threats. She told Adam that pursuing this case would tear the family apart, and that we'd regret it if we didn't drop the charges. She even brought up his late father, saying, "Your dad would be ashamed of you for treating me this way." That one really hit Adam hard, but he didn't let it sway him. He told her, "Dad would be ashamed of you for what you've done." When guilt and threats didn't work, Megan escalated. She started reaching out to other family members, twisting the story to make herself the victim. She told them we were suing her for no reason, and that I was poisoning Adam against her. Soon, we were getting calls and messages from relatives asking us to be the bigger person and keep the family together. Adam and I decided we weren't going to engage with the flying monkeys. If they were willing to take Megan's side without hearing our version of events, they weren't worth our time. Instead, we focused on the case. Then, we had to file the civil lawsuit. This was more complicated because we had to provide detailed evidence of the financial and emotional toll Megan's actions had taken on us. Thankfully, the clinic had been incredibly cooperative, providing call logs, appointment details, and copies of the forged documents. Along with this, we included the tampered bills Megan had mailed to us, which proved she was attempting to manipulate our finances as well. One thing I hadn't anticipated was how draining this process would be. Every time I looked at the evidence, I felt a fresh wave of anger and betrayal. Seeing Megan's handwriting on the forged documents was especially hard. It was like a physical reminder of how far she was willing to go to undermine me. Our lawyer helped us draft the lawsuit. The total amount wasn't astronomical, but it was significant enough to send a message. You can't do something like this and walk away unscathed. When Megan was served with the lawsuit, her reaction was predictable. She called Adam in tears, begging him to drop it. She said she was sorry and that she never meant to hurt anyone, but her apologies rang hollow. If she were truly sorry, she wouldn't have waited until she was facing legal consequences to say it. Adam told her as much and hung up. Next, she tried to negotiate. She offered to repay us for the medical charges if we dropped the lawsuit. But it wasn't just about the money. It was about accountability, and we weren't backing down. Meanwhile, the criminal case was moving forward. The police interviewed us and took our statements, along with the evidence we'd provided. They also reached out to the clinic staff who had dealt with Megan. From what our lawyer told us, the case against her was strong. As the legal process unfolded, Megan's behavior became increasingly erratic. She alternated between playing the victim and lashing out at us. At one point, she even showed up at our house unannounced, banging on the door and demanding to talk. Adam refused to let her in and threatened to call the police if she didn't leave. That seemed to scare her off, at least temporarily. The real surprise came when Rachel got involved. I'd expected her to side with Megan, but she took things a step further. She started spreading rumors about me, claiming I was jealous of her, and that this whole situation was my way of getting back at her for being Megan's favorite. It was absurd, but it still hurt. I'd never been close to Rachel, but I hadn't expected her to sink this low. The worst part was how public she made it. Rachel went on social media, posting vague, passive-aggressive updates about family betrayal and some people not knowing their place. It didn't take long for mutual acquaintances to figure out she was talking about us. I started getting messages from friends and extended family asking what was going on. It was exhausting. Through it all, Adam remained my rock. He reminded me that this wasn't about Rachel's wedding or Megan's feelings. It was about doing what was right for our family. By the time the first court date rolled around, I felt like I'd aged 10 years. But as stressful as it all was, I knew we were doing the right thing. I'll leave you guys here. If anything new arises, I'll post an update. And Update 3.0. Hey everyone. This is another update in what has been the most exhausting and bizarre chapter of my life. Writing this feels pathetic. Megan's actions had ripple effects that touched every corner of our lives, but now that the dust is settling, it's clear that karma doesn't miss. Here's how it all played out. The legal proceedings against Megan escalated quickly. The criminal case moved forward faster than we expected, likely because the evidence was so damning. The forged documents, the clinic's call logs, and the testimonies from the clinic staff all painted a crystal-clear picture of her actions. She had lied, impersonated me, and falsified legal documents. There was no room for her to wiggle out of it. The civil lawsuit added more pressure. Megan initially tried to negotiate, offering to settle for a small amount to cover the fraudulent medical charges. But we weren't interested in settling unless it was on our terms. This wasn't just about money, it was about holding her accountable. Our lawyer pushed for damages that reflected the emotional distress and financial burden her actions caused us, and we refused to back down. As the court dates approached, Megan's behavior became even more erratic. She started calling Adam at odd hours, leaving tearful voicemails begging him to drop the cases. She even sent letters to our house, claiming she was misunderstood and only trying to do what was best for the family. Her manipulations didn't stop there. She reached out to other family members, trying to rally them to her side. A few relatives did try to intervene, urging us to forgive and forget. But most of them distanced themselves from Megan when they learned the full extent of what she'd done. Her attempts to paint herself as the victim backfired spectacularly when the truth came out. And then there was Rachel. If you thought she might come to her senses, think again. Instead of supporting her mom, Rachel decided to save her own skin. She made a big show of distancing herself from Megan, claiming she had no knowledge of the scheme and didn't condone it. Why the sudden change of heart? Well, Rachel's fiancé and his family found out about the situation, and let's just say they weren't thrilled. They were understandably horrified that their future mother-in-law had committed fraud, and they started questioning whether they wanted to be associated with a family embroiled in such a scandal. Rachel's engagement began to unravel, and instead of taking responsibility, she blamed Megan for everything. Megan, meanwhile, was devastated. All her life, she'd prioritized Rachel, doted on her, and done everything to ensure her happiness. And now, when she needed Rachel's support the most, Rachel threw her under the bus to save herself. It was poetic justice in the most ironic way. Megan had sacrificed her integrity, her reputation, and her relationship with Adam and me for Rachel, and in the end, Rachel abandoned her. The criminal case concluded with Megan being convicted of identity theft and forgery. As a first-time offender, she avoided jail but faced hefty fines, hundreds of hours of community service, and court-mandated therapy, leaving her with a criminal record. Shortly after, the civil lawsuit was resolved with Megan agreeing to a settlement that covered fraudulent medical charges, legal fees, and damages for emotional distress, enough to make it clear that actions have consequences. We used part of the settlement money to cover our moving expenses. Adam and I decided to leave the area and start fresh in a new city. It wasn't an easy decision, but it was the right one. We needed distance. From Megan, from Rachel, and from the toxic dynamics that had defined Adam's family for far too long. This is where I am right now. I'm actually curious about the wedding. Obviously, I won't attend, but I just want to know how it'll go, or whether it'll ever happen. I'll keep you updated. Finale update. Hey everyone. Just like I promised you, I came with an update about Rachel's wedding, so here it is. It's been a wild ride, but this update feels like the perfect closing note to the entire mess. First, the big news. Adam and I just welcomed our baby boy a few weeks ago. He's healthy, happy, and the light of our lives. Holding him in my arms makes all the chaos and stress we've been through feel worth it. He's the reason we've stayed strong through all of this. Now, about Rachel's wedding, it didn't just get postponed, it was officially canceled. From what I've heard, her fiancé's family decided they didn't want to move forward with the marriage because of all the ongoing family issues. Megan's legal troubles and the fallout from her conviction were a big part of it, but Rachel's behavior didn't help. She tried to paint herself as a victim in the whole situation, but people saw through her. Her fiancé apparently got tired of the drama and ended things for good. As for Megan, her social life has completely crumbled. Word about her conviction spread quickly, and the same people she used to brag to about her perfect family have turned their backs on her. Friends stopped inviting her to events, and even her extended family began avoiding her. She's become a pariah, and honestly, she brought it on herself. Adam and I, on the other hand, are doing better than ever. Moving to a new city was exactly what we needed, and it feels like we can finally breathe again. Our son is thriving, and we feel closer than ever after weathering this storm together. Cutting off Megan and Rachel was the best decision we've made. It's like a huge weight has been lifted off our shoulders. There's one last thing I want to share. Before we moved, Adam and I visited his dad's grave. Adam had been struggling with guilt, feeling like he'd let his dad down by cutting ties with Megan. But as we stood there, Adam said something that really stuck with me. I think Dad would understand. He'd want us to protect our family. And that's exactly what we've done. We've created a safe, happy home for our son, free from the chaos and toxicity Megan brought into our lives. She tried to tear us apart, but in the end, all she did was destroy herself. Karma came full circle, and honestly, it feels like justice. Thank you all for sticking with me through this journey. It's been a wild ride, but we're finally on the other side. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. You can't control what other people do, but you can control how you respond. And sometimes the best thing you can do is stand your ground and let karma do the rest.